welcome to episode number 12 of Islandish Podcast. I am your host, the lovely Yami Swin, better known as Yams. It's an absolute pleasure to have you guys tuning in. And I have with me, attorney at law, Miss Tamar Moss-Ferguson. How are you?
I am great.
That is wonderful.
And thank you for having me. You know, Yams, we kind of go way back. Just a way back. Mm-hmm. So I'm so proud of where you at right now. I mean, I was just saying a moment ago, I mean, you see this setup, you see how everything.
Y'all see us?
I mean, we look like money.
I love it.
Yes. I love it. So congrats.
Thank you. If y'all don't know, Miss Moss knows me from way back when, like Miss Junior Grand Bahama days.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's when I first did grow breasts. You know, when I first matured as a young lady, first learned how to walk in heels. Mm-hmm. And this is the lady that helped me to turn into the speaker you see before you today. She helped me answer the on-stage questions and things of that nature. And I must thank you. You did an amazing job.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
Taught me some things that I still use to this day. That's why I don't need paper to do these interviews. Yeah. So as we start to dive more into you, because this interview is all about you and what you're doing as an attorney here in Grand Bahama.
Yes.
So let's start from the very beginning. How did you get into law and your journey now to becoming or being who you are today?
Well, it's so funny. So let me start here by saying I'm born and raised in Grand Bahama. I went to Mary Star of the Sea Catholic School. Then it was only a primary school. Then I went and matriculated on to the Freeport Anglican High School, now known as Bishop Michael Eldon School. Warrior for Life.
Okay.
And in high school is when I discovered my knack for gab. And the knack of gab being a good thing.
Right.
Because, you know, in primary school, you had those report cards, and the report cards would say, oh, she's a good student, but she's too talkative.
Too much. Yeah.
She's
I know about
talkative. So I would have gotten that every term, but it was only until the 10th grade that I had a teacher that said, you know what, you could use that to be a lawyer.
Right.
You know? Because one thing about you, you're one of those students that I would say is argumentative, but you have a question for every question.
Right, okay, all right. I know about that.
So then that's when my whole, I guess, trajectory of law started. Because prior to that, everyone knew me as the doodler, the artist. I loved to paint. I still love to paint. I did all of the murals in school. So I was that girl, right?
Okay.
And funny enough, when I got accepted into the College of the Bahamas, it was because of art.
Okay.
So I was there to take up an Associates of Arts. And I quickly, within the first week, said, no, law.
Yeah, let's change this up a little bit.
Let's change it to law. So yeah, I went to the College of the Bahamas. I graduated with an associate's degree in 2010. Up there. And then I went to the University of the West Indies for 3 years. I got my bachelor's. And then I was called to the bar. Well, before being called to the bar, I went to law school at Eugene DePuge. In 2015, got called to the bar then. And I'm still learning. Like I always say, law is indeed a practice.
Right.
So I'm currently getting my master's.
Like it's a continuous learning process.
Continuous learning experience. But I enjoy what I do. I really enjoy what I do. So as soon as I graduated and I got called to the bar, I came back home. You know, everyone at that time thought it was crazy to come back home.
Right. People love to say that about coming back to Grand Bahama. Like, what you come back here for?
What you come back here for? You don't want to make money, eh?
Right.
But no, it was, you know, a sense of I wanted to come back home. I wanted to feel comfortable, and I also wanted to give back to my community. So as soon as I got back home, I went into a civil practice, civil and family practice. And then based on a paper I would have done in my law studies, I was called on by, well, he's now the late Mr. Carlson Sherlin KC to join his firm Sherlin & Co. And I did civil there. I did family there. And of course, if you're with Sherlin & Co., what are you going to do? Criminal law.
Right.
He was like the guru of criminal law in Grand Bahama, in the Bahamas probably, right? So I was there practicing all three of those areas. And in criminal law, what I took a keen interest in was, the idea of a bail application. Right?
Okay.
So I always kind of wanted to, if there was ever a bail application, I said, okay, Mr. Charlotte, I want to
handle that. Right.
let me see if I can handle that one.
Right.
So yeah, that's a synopsis of me, at least my earlier career in law. Now, I'm currently at the Ministry for Grand Bahama as their in-house legal counsel.
Okay.
So I don't get to talk as much as I used to.
Right.
But it's still a very interesting experience. I love working in that ministry because there are a lot of things in the pipeline for Grand Bahama that I see happening. And I'm very proud to be a part of what's happening on the island of Grand Bahama to ensure that it's flourishing. So when people say, "Oh, why are you in Grand Bahama?" You'll find out soon enough.
Wait on it. You can see. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so with you being legal counsel, what would your duties entail in that area? And I'm asking for persons who are interested in law, who want to know about different careers they could get into outside of just being in the courthouse or working in the court system.
Right.
What do you do in your role there at the Ministry of Grand Bahama?
And I'm glad you asked, because when it comes to being an in-house legal counsel, it's not really talked enough about.
Right.
People always think about the Perry Masons and the law and order. But when it comes to in-house legal counsel, you may think or assume that it's boring, but it's really not. So I deal with contractual issues, procurement issues.
Okay.
Now, let me just say this right now.
Make the record straight.
I don't select who get a contract.
Right, you're not a part of that process.
Hey, we, like attorneys say, we are creatures of instruction.
Right, I do what I'm told.
Yes. And then I also liaise with the Grand Bahama Port Authority because they're a major entity here in Grand Bahama, and I liaise with the Attorney General's office. I provide legal opinion to the ministry as far as, the do's and the don'ts, kind of. So that's a synopsis of what I do.
You're an advisor.
I'm an advisor.
Who knows legal jargon and legal things.
Yeah.
Got you. So that's really interesting that you were able to grow in that kind of way. You kind of know a little bit about different things. So what we're going to start off talking about is more of the family law that you did. So what are some examples of cases that you've worked on and situations that you've seen while working in that area?
So thank you for asking me that. So when I was in my pupillage phase, one of the areas, especially in family, that I took a very keen interest in was adoptions. So the attorney that I understudied at that time, he specialized in, I would call it like a foreign adoption. So it's basically when two parents, one being a Bahamian, the other but one being a non-Bahamian, and they wanted to adopt at the time, this is a particular case, it was two non-Bahamian minor children. And, when it comes to the Bahamas, that could be a very touchy subject. But I'm glad that with that area of law, I got to see the human element of it. So within that particular case, I had to argue that these two minor children being 17 years of age, that the adoption process wasn't done or wasn't being petitioned in order to just circumvent immigration laws and basically to get them citizenship quickly.
Got you. Right.
Because in their particular instance, when it comes to minor children being adopted, especially by, in a marriage, a male spouse, right, or a potential male father, they would take on their citizenship, which would have been Bahamian.
Right.
So the AG's office is obviously involved in that because it's a matter of national importance.
Right.
So when you're talking about bestowing citizenship
on someone.
So, but I was glad to work on that and to see that, no, they were just trying to circumvent any citizenship or, regular citizenship routes. They really just wanted to have a nuclear family.
Right.
They really loved each other and they just wanted, to share his last name.
Right.
That's it. So that was one of the most proudest moments, I think, in my career as far as a lawyer. And I'm glad that I was able to, have that experience quite early on in my career.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I love love that. I love that because a lot of times, especially, and I like how you broke it down in terms of that's all the detailing that goes into it. Like, you really have to look into all of that and cross all the T's and dot all the I's.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of situations where children who do not have Bahamian status, they go, I think it's called being stateless.
Yes, it's called being stateless in when it comes to certain nationalities. But also, I think we have to keep in mind, quite recently, the law would have been changed. Right? The Privy Council, would have accepted the CG's, when I say CG, the Chief Justice's ruling.
You got to keep talking layman's terms for my lovely listeners.
Yeah. But, so, when it was first, I believe, how understood, the Constitution was understood, there were certain elements that would say, how can I say more or less, that you as a child being born to a person out of wedlock, especially when it came to a father out of wedlock, you weren't entitled to Bahamian citizenship automatically.
Right.
So the law has changed in that instance. I'm very proud of that, actually.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So that has been changed to where they can get the citizenship of their father
automatically.
Yeah. That's good because I feel like that solves a lot of problems, especially everybody with this unprotected sexual activities you always want to be having. Churning before you're married and stuff like that. No, it really does complicate a lot of things for a lot of people, and a lot of people get taken advantage of, and they go a very long time without getting things that, it's like they should have it, but the law say you can't, so now it's almost like the law is catching up with the times. So speaking of that, when it comes to constitutional reforms and things of that nature, what other aspects of the law that you feel should be or could be amended? Don't give me your whole thesis or your whole dissertation. Give me maybe two things that you feel could be reformed as it relates to our Constitution and certain parts of it.
Well, I'll say this. The Bahamas, for a very long time, I think it's been about 20 years or so, we've been going through these referenda processes that have always failed.
Yes.
Especially when it comes to the rights of women.
Yes.
And being revered as equal in this country. So I do believe there should be a complete overhaul when it comes to the Constitution and really narrowing down when it comes to freedoms of individuals and who those individuals are, and that person should not be discriminated against, especially when it comes to sex.
Right.
So when I say sex, what do I mean? Because that was also a bone of contention in the last referendum. I'm talking about male and female.
Gender.
It's genders. It's simple as that. And I think that was one of the main reasons why that particular referendum or myriad of questions failed is because persons, they tend to muddy the water, but
didn't understand the word usage.
They didn't understand it, but at the end of the day, that is something that we really need as a country to be mature about and to respect. Because women are everywhere now in society, every facet of society.
This is the most women we've ever had in politics.
Oh, okay. When you talk about the actual composition of the Senate, the composition of the House of Assembly, we've already had our first Deputy Prime Minister. We've had our first, when I say first Deputy Prime Minister, female Deputy Prime Minister, first acting Prime Minister, first female Governor General, right? So why can't we now represent that in our codified laws, right? Outside of the Constitution, I do have an issue when it comes to this idea of spousal rape or marital rape.
Oh Lord Jesus, we getting into it. But before we dive too deep into that, because we really getting deep into this conversation, we're gonna take a quick commercial break, and then we come back. We can be talking more about law with the lovely Tamar Moss-Ferguson.
Greetings and welcome to Superior Talk Bahamas. My name is Yvette Swain, and I am here with the Sword Sharpeners Prayer Network. We meet every Monday at 6 p.m., where we dive into the Word of God to see what He would say to us. You are welcome to join us. That's every Monday at 6 p.m. here on Superior Talks. God bless you, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye.
Yes, so we are back here with Islandish Podcast, and we have the lovely Mistress Moss-Ferguson talking all about constitutional reforms. At first, we talked about gender equality, and now we're talking about the conversation of spousal rape. And I'm going to let you continue with that regard in terms of reforming that section of the Constitution.
Yeah, so when it comes to the issue of marital rape, and I do believe the Bahamas is, it's not even me to believe, it's just a matter of fact.
Yes.
Right? We are so far behind when it comes to this idea of saying that a man or spouse, really, because when you talk about marital rape, it doesn't have a gender either.
Right,
So
that's true.
it's a spouse.
Right.
Cannot rape his or her spouse.
Right.
It's, to me, it does not make sense. It does not fit the norm of a modern Bahamian society.
Right.
We are literally one of the few jurisdictions, not just the region, in the world that still has the idea that a spouse cannot rape their spouse. Right.
Which is dangerous.
It's dangerous, because even if you take in consideration, and I want to tie back my private family practices of what we can see on a weekly basis are the instances of why someone would come to dissolve their marriage.
Right.
Right? And I mean, from sexually transmitted diseases to domestic abuse. So they come to me when not necessarily they had enough, but because they have the financial leverage in order to get out.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Some spouses don't have that.
Right.
You have some spouses who, they still think about, okay, what would society think if I don't have the perfect nuclear family, the perfect home? What would they say? Would they even believe me?
Right.
Would they blame me? Right? So I do believe that ensuring that you criminalize, and I kind of hate even saying the term marital rape.
Right. Because rape is rape.
It's rape is rape. And it's kind of an oxymoron,
right,
to say that rape kind of fits in marriage. It for me, that it does not make sense. So I think as a society, we kind of need to, again, mature when it comes to that, and ensure that we protect, our citizens.
Right.
It's so interesting that when it came to the former referendum and persons talking about, oh God, Tamar, you get in trouble. But same-sex marriage, the Christian Council and everyone wanted you in the bad den. They wanted to be in the bad den. But when it came to, a heterosexual relationship and the presence of violence,
right,
all of a sudden, no, we can't.
Right.
The bed is undefiled.
Right.
So,
and that's really, and I'm happy that you're so passionate about it, because that's a conversation a lot of us don't want to have or understand. And I think, like you said, it comes with a level of maturity, because if you understand what rape is, what trauma is, what something like that is, it wouldn't be confused with, oh no, my wife just mad and she just say that. Like, no, there are physical signs. There are certain things that a doctor could look at and be like, no, this clearly was a rape situation. Like, it ain't like, or someone getting raped and they ain't have no bruises, they ain't have no like, it comes with a lot of different things. You always watch Law and Order SVU. Like, let's not play ignorant. But a lot of, especially I've seen it with men church leaders, using the sense of this could be a tool to be used against men when they're spiteful wives. And no, this is something that a doctor has to be able to verify. Just like how a female can't just go and be like, oh yeah, he raped me. It's like, when Where? What happened? Where's the DNA? Where's the this? It's a lot of boxes that need to get checked before it gets to that. And what makes it even worse is, as a Christian man, why would you not want this to be put into place? So that you can make sure that the women in your lives are protected. Not even just your wife. Your daughters, your sister. Grandchildren. Like, these are some real things. And the Bahamas is like one of the highest amount of rapes per capita in the region. Like, that's insane. And that's something that's not talked about enough. We like to talk about the murder rate. We don't like to talk about that rape count, though.
The violence,
Rape and violence against women and children. We don't like to talk about that count. But that's something very serious, especially in the area of law. So when it comes to family law that you practice, and then we're going to transition into more criminal side of what you practice. On the family side of it, how many cases has there been where people have come to dissolve marriages because of things related to the home in terms of unsafe situations and things of that nature?
So in the law, what we describe it is cruelty. So this particular jurisdiction, the Bahamas, it is a fault-based jurisdiction. So what does that mean? So you have in areas or states in the United States of America, in their jurisdictions, you have a no-fault base. So you can dissolve a marriage based on irreconcilable differences, right? In the Bahamas, we don't have that same premise.
Okay, that's interesting.
When you petition someone to court, you're basically suing them. That's what you're doing. They're at fault for something in the marriage, for the union. So there are 5 reasons why you would have to present it to the court in order to say that you're dissolving this marriage, right? So you have, am I giving free advice here? I'm giving free advice. But you have desertion, which is 2 years continuous, no contact. You have separation, 5 years, no contact, and that includes sexual.
Yes, can't still be boning.
Can't be doing nothing. So desertion, separation, and then you also have cruelty, right? You have cruelty. You have adultery, which is the famous one.
Top tail.
And then you have other instances, but the cruelty one is not only physical, because people think, in order for me to get out of this marriage, like you said, bruises, but it also is mental. It can be mental or physical cruelty. Now, in my practice since 2015, I would say that the majority of the cases that I have petitioned the court for dissolution of marriage, majority of them would have been under cruelty, physical or mental. And I don't want to say that one is worse than the other, but for context, right? You're talking about from I wouldn't say as simple, but financial. There was some financial stuff. Manipulation, deprivation, straight up until, there's a sexually transmitted disease, right?
That puts their life or physical well-being at health. Okay, I see what you're meaning. Okay.
So, and you also have the situations where if they were not married, it would be rape.
Right. Yeah, right.
It would automatically be seen as rape. Like, when you write the facts of the case out, I'm like, like this is really what it is, but we're not saying it out loud, and it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. But I would say there is in the law a situation where even though you're married, if you're separated, legally separated, it would be considered rape, like criminal rape. But other than that, prior to that, it's not, and that's the number one problem. Because what I find time and time again is that the reason why persons aren't, especially not to separate the genders, but females especially, are not going to the police is because they don't have a voice.
Right.
They feel like they'll be shamed. They don't. They're like, okay, if I leave this man, where I going?
Right.
No
support.
No support. It's a 2-parent household for a reason. Someone got to pay the mortgage. Someone have to pay the bills. If I separate,
I got to carry it on my own.
And you can't. You just can't. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really discouraging. But as always, there's always a silver lining to things. You know, things could always get better, especially with persons like you working in the law system and working with some of your colleagues to try and get this type of information out. And this is why we're here at Islandish Podcast. This is free information that you guys could use to educate yourselves and your families. But we're going to take another commercial break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk more about her criminal side of it and also dive into some of the things we can look forward to here in Grand Bahama.
Hi everybody, I'm Jason.
And I'm Cheryl. Join us here on Superior Talk Bahamas YouTube channel every Tuesday at 6 for Let's Talk,
Where we talk about issues that matter to you. We try to come up with workable, practical solutions so we have more action and less talk.
See you on Tuesday.
We are back with Islandish Podcast with the lovely Tamar Moss-Ferguson, attorney at law, and we are going to dive more into the criminal side of her early practices and her knowledge in that sense. Early. So now you said you worked, what you said, bailing system, what's that?
So bail applications.
Right, what is bail applications? Because I've never had to get one, praise be to God. So explain that to me a little bit.
So I would say in a nutshell, because like I said, when I was under the tutelage of Mr. Carlson Sherlin Casey, may he rest in peace, one of the best mentors on the island, I would say, when it comes to the law, is he had this way of pushing you into the deep end.
Okay.
Right? So imagine me, someone who is in family law. I love family law. And he said, okay, here's your first criminal matter. You go into the police station at 10 p.m. Don't be late for an interview, right? Where the client at that time, he was there. I think one of my first ones was like a drug matter or something like that. Fine. So we went through the questioning exercise and he was charged. It was I think intent to supply or something like that.
Intent to distribute?
Yeah, no, intent to supply, but
oh gee, that's a bigger one or a smaller one?
No, when you say distribute, supply, same thing.
Okay.
But intent to supply. And so we went to the magistrate court for his first plea. So that's basically where they read the charge to him. He has to plead guilty or not guilty. And I believe at that time it had to go to the Supreme Court. So fine. But a simple bail application is, and I always break it down like this, right? Because people confuse, I wouldn't say people, but the general audience sometimes thinks that if someone gets bail, that they're either innocent, or it has to do with a matter of the charge not being a serious one, or the court not deeming the charge a serious one, right? So I always say it has nothing to do with that. It really has nothing to do with that. Bail is all about, listen, it makes no sense, this person sitting in a jail cell until they await their trial. So we're going to give them bail because we believe that this person will not abscond. You know, he has no antecedents. When I say no antecedents, he has no past or previous convictions.
Right.
It would not be a serious threat to our society to
let him come back
let him
in
go
society
and then come to answer his charge then. On a later date, or to appear for his trial at a later date. That's kind of essentially what it is. Yeah.
So in the application, you would explain all of those reasons why they should get bail?
Yes.
Okay, and then the judge would either approve or deny it.
Right.
And once it's approved, what happens after that? So
then you have conditions to bail that has to be met by the applicant. So the applicant in this, when you think about the applicant, you're thinking about the person who has been charged, right? So there are conditions that have to be met. So it can be a myriad of either a fine, so like not fine, but sorry, cash bail. You would have reporting conditions, ankle monitoring conditions. It's a lot of conditions. The
drug testing too sometimes,
or they'll withhold your passport. It's a few of them. Yeah.
Okay, so, and the reason why I want to talk more about this, because there's been a lot of conversations about persons, and I'm happy that you mentioned it at the beginning. People have this incentive like, oh, why are people always getting bail, and you're just letting these criminals back on the street? But as you've explained, it's actually a pretty detailed process.
Yeah, and if you think about when a bail application is done, so especially when you talk about serious crimes or any crime for that matter, it is a matter for the jury, or sometimes just a lone judge, but it's a matter for the jury, right? And that person or group of persons determines their innocence or guilt.
Right.
So the bail application stage is not saying that that person is either innocent or guilty.
Right.
That person at a bail application stage is what I used to call cloaked in innocence.
Okay, right.
Right? So you can't say that, oh, the person should be denied bail because
The type of thing they assumed or claimed to have done.
Right. Right. Now, you can factor in the seriousness of the offense. You can factor in probably if he would have said to one of his friends, and y'all catch that he say to one of his friends, boy, as soon as they give me a bail, I go into Jamaica.
Right.
You can factor those in. You could even factor in a situation where if it's a gang-related crime, it's a drug-related crime, and you know that if you let this person out, he may be attacked.
Right.
And he may be a victim himself of an even more serious crime.
Right.
So those can be factored in as reasons why you would deny, the judge would deny someone bail. But I always say, when you talk about the constitutionality of someone's freedom, of their liberty, I always try to lean more on the side of no, if there are no serious impediments as to why this person shouldn't be granted bail, then grant that person bail. Because at the end of the day, what is before the judge is an innocent person.
Right. Especially if they plead not guilty.
I mean, if they plead guilty, you
ain't gonna get no bail application. So my other question would be, as you would provide a bail application, I think it's the prosecution, what would they do to counter that? Or what would they present, or do they put in a counter application or something like that?
Yeah, there are times when you have, so for instance, most of the bail applications I dealt with, the respondent would have been the AG's office.
Okay.
So once you file that affidavit stating the reasons why that person should be allowed bail, the AG's, there are two options the AG's can do. The AG's office can do. So we can come to sort of a settlement arrangement and agree that, okay, based on the bare facts of what we see here, this person has no antecedents, this crime isn't as serious, we could agree for the judge.
Right.
If they are of the same opinion, if the judge is of the same opinion, to grant bail. So that's one. Right. And that happens.
Yeah.
That happens. You don't want to waste the court time, and because you see on the bare face of it.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, okay, fine. You see you in a couple months, right? Or a couple weeks. And then you have where the AG's office could provide their response to your affidavit, and we would have to flesh out based on arguments from either side why this person should be allowed, for the applicant or respondent not allowed to be granted bail. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Have you ever dealt with any murder cases? Not to say any specific, but just a yes or no question.
Just a yes.
Okay, so with dealing with that, have you ever been in a situation where the families of the murdered victim are upset or antagonistic or things of that nature?
I would say, so the particular murder case, I'm thinking it was a double murder. I'm thinking about the family was at first, I think upset with, because that particular case, it had to been 2 to 4 attorneys on that case, because there were separate defendants. And they were at first upset, but then I think it's because that particular case was also a very long, drawn-out case. At the same time, they then saw that, okay, we just were doing our job.
Right.
And then you have some families, 4 persons you represent. they on you.
Right.
Right? Like, you better
Do your job.
Do your job.
Yeah, make this work. You're paying you a lot of money.
Right. Do your job. But yeah, so.
Okay, so, and the reason why I'm asking that is because a lot of times, well, for me and persons who I know, we feel like we know the law and the legal system because we watch a lot of Law and Order, Criminal Minds, Blue Bloods, you know, you just watch TV.
Yeah.
So you feel like, no, why didn't say this or why didn't get right. So when it comes to that, how different is actual law here in the Bahamas from what you see on TV? I have to ask. So,
I mean, besides the dun dun dun.
right.
No, but I would say it's necessarily different. Of course, the TV law that you see is a different jurisdiction. So we have different practices, but some of the arguments and the creativity and the theatrics that you probably would see are kind of similar.
Okay.
If you, depending on the attorney that you get to watch, I would say sometimes the reality is much more funnier than fiction. I would say that. But what I realized with getting into law, because again, before getting into law, my reference was Law and Order, right?
Right.
So I thought it was just you're cute, you're in a suit, you have your briefcase, and you strut.
Your little black and your little white ascot thing.
Yeah, everything. But it's much more than that. People really don't see that it's like a pound of makeup on because I have dark circles under my eye because I've been out. I've been in my books for 12 hours. It's a very, very tedious, very long. It's almost like an obsession when you're a lawyer, especially when you're preparing for a trial. It becomes an obsession.
Yeah, but you're a good lawyer.
Yeah, and I think a lot of clients and people don't understand how much is invested into your craft and being a lawyer and how you present yourself in front of a judge and jury.
I love that. Okay. So we're going to take our next commercial break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk more about Mistress Moss-Ferguson. I like saying that, girl.
Yeah, mistress.
Yo, what's up, Bahamas? My name is Andrew Williams, aka Cat.
And I'm your boy Mix.
And we're representing Off the Bench, the number one talk sportcast in the Bahamas.
In the world, my boy.
My bad partner. So we cover anything sports throughout the Bahamas. We cover our Bahamian athletes wherever they are, and they're making waves in sports. We cover them.
Hey, just tune in. That's every Wednesday here on Superior Talk at 6:00 p.m.
The number one talk show
in the world, Craig.
All right, y'all are still holding on, and I love it. We are here with the lovely Mistress Moss-Ferguson, and we are talking all about her and her career as an attorney at law. Now, you were involved with, what's it called? You were a former chief executive of the Commonwealth Youth Council.
Yes.
I remember.
You got it.
Photographic memory.
You got it.
So talk more about that and what exactly that is.
Okay, so great. So I'll start from, is it okay if I start from the beginning?
Girl, you can start from the beginning. We got time. We got time.
Good. So it's actually right after I met you.
Okay.
I would have joined Toastmasters, the great Toastmasters. I encourage anyone, especially if you have a fear of public speaking, to join Toastmasters. We have, I think, 2 or 3 clubs here, 1425 being the best. I'll just put that plug in.
Okay, shout out your plugs.
Put a plug in. But yeah, I would have joined Toastmasters when I was in Nassau, and there I was invited to be a part of the Bahamas National Youth Council and serve on the executive there as the vice president of legal affairs because I was in law school at the time.
Right. And
from there, I stuck with it for a number of years and matriculated into the Commonwealth Youth Council because long story short, I was asked to be a draftsman of a policy draftsman for the Commonwealth Education's ministers meeting that was held in Nassau at that time. So they needed a draftsman, and I volunteered my services. And then when I learned more about the Commonwealth, and what they did and how they impacted basically our region especially, I said, okay, I want to get into this. So I had my first CHOGM experience. So CHOGM is Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. And I had my first CHOGM experience in 2015. And there I sat as a member of the Commonwealth Youth Council representing the Bahamas, from the Bahamas National Youth Council standpoint. And then I went to second CHOGM, and I also assisted with campaigns for various persons throughout the region and other regions who wanted to be on the executive of the Commonwealth Youth Council. And shout out to me because all 7 of my persons won.
Okay.
So the chairman at that time, who who was elected as the chairman of the Commonwealth Youth Council, he would have onboarded me and appointed me to be his chief executive. So I was appointed to be the chief executive of the Commonwealth Youth Council. Basically, it was all administrative duties. And I was also tasked with the responsibility of amending the Commonwealth Youth Council's constitution, which was a very, very big task, because if you think about what the Commonwealth Youth Council represents, it's over 1 billion young people,
Right.
of all different regions, all different backgrounds, socioeconomic, black, white, red, yellow, Asians, Pacific, Caribbean, the Americas, and the UK. And so you had to, as a member of the Commonwealth Youth Council, be a voice of young people throughout the Commonwealth, more than 50 countries. So it was indeed a privilege to be at that post. I was the first female that was appointed to that position and first black person appointed to that position. So I was really proud of that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Kudos.
Yeah.
I think we're Freeport girls, son.
We is the
killing it.
everywhere.
Killing it.
No, but I want to touch on that because that is one thing about my island that I love so much, especially when you talk about the millennial, Gen Z, Gen X too. Like I got y'all.
Right.
Gen X too, but Grand Bahamians on the whole, we have this resilient spirit. We have a persevering spirit. I mean, if you think about how much we've gone through just over the past 30 years alone,
Right.
it's amazing what we accomplished with, bare minimum, basically. Yeah.
Just with the few and couple of us just
Yeah.
sitting around, growing up together, and then one day it's like, oh yeah, all us still here. You're to the top of the hill too. Like, oh, it's just us. Great, And I love that for us. So with you working in that role, did you get to meet some amazing different people? What were some of the things, because you mentioned a few of them, some of the things that you said or did that would be impactful definitely for Bahamians while in that post?
So yes, I was able to meet a lot, and I mean a lot of inspiring individuals, like Nobel Peace Prize winners, of course the Queen,
Yes.
her grandson Harry.
Gorgeous man.
I met him, the General Secretary, presidents, prime ministers, everyone, and also being able to network in that environment took me around the world, literally. And I'm very thankful that I did not at the time have an inferior complex. And I didn't think, okay, I'm just this girl from Grand Bahama. What am I doing here? But that I thought that my skill set was enough to take me around the world.
Right.
So I was really proud of that. And I try to, as much as possible, encourage Bahamians, especially young Bahamians, Grand Bahamians, to be a part of these same circles.
Yes.
We also had a chairman of the Caribbean Regional Youth Council that's from Grand Bahama, Shaquille Knowles.
Yes.
Yes.
Big up to Shaquille. He was in COVID and
Yes.
COB. Yes.
And funny enough, a lot of persons who went to COB, graduated from COB, they're also in these circles.
In these circles.
Yeah.
Y'all don't be down in y'all
No.
education. COB is make champions.
Yeah, but I'm really proud to say that COB,
UB.
UB now. Yeah.
Right.
But COB, Freeport Anglican High, Mary Star of the Sea, UE. I went to UE in Nassau. But my home-based education took me around the world.
Yes.
I didn't have to go around the world in order to be educated.
Right.
I was right home and I got educated, and that took me around the world.
That's it.
So I'm proud to say that. But it's all, and I tell young people this all the time, it's you network. You can network. It's who you know. It's definitely who you know. But okay, when you use your connections, do you have the skill set? Do you have the capability?
Right. Because you can only embarrass yourself. That's all you can do.
And when you get to those times, you're going to embarrass your country.
That's it. Real. They can be like, what the Bahamas send? Who this is?
So what are we going to do? So and people say it all the time, oh, you could only get this place and that place based on who you know. And that's partly right. It could get you in the door.
Right.
It could definitely get you in the door.
But you got to perform.
You have to perform.
I like that, and I like that you said that. And I love that because from what I've known of you, like almost all of my life is working with young people, working with young women, working in youthful circles, and using that, if not to raise your own skill set, but also to be a mentor to other young people. So what are some of the key things, because you mentioned Toastmasters, key things that you were involved in as a youth in Grand Bahama that you feel really helped you along your journey as being a lawyer and moving on to all these other great places?
Well, I will say this. So Toastmasters definitely was the key, like ultimate for me. And this is what I want to say. I want to preface it with this. As young people, right? You know, back in the day, people believe that in order for you to be someone, you have to be in these regular, when I say regular, because law is not regular, but,
right.
you know, these, professions,
right.
The lawyer, the doctor, the accountant, and everything. But I always say that you have to know what your gift is. Your gift. Right? Because, again, at the time, my gift was art. I still love art. Don't let people compartmentalize you and put you in one box and say, because you're this, you can't be this. No, I love art and I love law, and I marry the two. Right? But for me in particular, it was, the different service organizations. I was a debutante. I was in Key Club. I was in Interact Club. Shout out to Mr. T. I was best choir in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, Freeport Island High School choir. I did the softball. I did everything. I was one of those kids. But I would say for me, and this is a personal experience of mine, that my village is what also springboarded me to certain areas of my life, or in certain areas of my life. Funny enough, my first Shogam experience was right when I got called to the bar, and my mom wanted to give me a gift, and she said, okay, this is how much money I have, what you could do with it. And I say, Mommy, I want to go to Shogam.
Right.
So I thankfully, I was working at the time, so I put some money with that, and I went, and that's what I did. So you also have to be invested in yourself. You have to be willing to invest in yourself as well. With the little you have to be able to invest with yourself, in yourself. But I always want to encourage, especially creatives,
right?
The artists, the hairdressers, even if you're a hair braider could take a course in the United States and end up anywhere around the world once you're the best at your craft. Right. So it's always about being the best at your craft, not necessarily about someone else's trajectory or what they did.
I love that. I love that. So we're going to take our next commercial break. When we come back, we're going to wrap up this amazing conversation we're having with the beautiful Tamar Moss-Ferguson. You asked and I delivered. Islandish is back. The podcast you guys have known to love, to like to call in, to like to interact with. We are officially back. For the ones that don't know me, this is your girl Yams. Hearing me on Mix 102.1 FM or your favorite TGF_Yams. with the 2 S's. We're back with Islandish right here on Superior Talk. So make sure you're following the page. We're going live this Thursday, 6 p.m. Don't miss it. Follow us. It's about to get lit. And we are back here with Islandish Podcast with the beautiful Tamar Moss-Ferguson. And we are wrapping up this amazing conversation that we're having. Again, it is so wonderful to talk with you. See how far both of us have come. Yes. I see all of us glowing and growing and just doing all these different things. I honestly thought I would have been a psychologist or something like that. But no, I like to talk too loud. I like to listen a little bit, but I want to talk too. So I am happy that life brought me on this direction. And one of the things I remember, especially from pageantry training, because she was like my speech coach for pageantry, she gave me this amazing phrase, which was, trim the meat, get to the fat. Yes.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
Trim the fat, get to the meat.
Yeah.
Trim the fat,
get to the meat. Yeah.
Like, don't fluff around a question when someone asks you a question. Make sure you answer the question first, and then add a little bit to the end. But make sure you answer the question.
Yes.
And it's simple things like that even you telling me that at such a tender young age, I think I was only like, 17, 16?
Oh my goodness, really?
Yes. Yeah, I was like 17.
Whoa.
Winning Miss Junior Grand Bahama, going to be in Miss Teen Bahamas, and winning that too.
Yes.
So that journey really taught me a lot. And even now as an adult and watching young people around me, I understand the importance, like you mentioned before we took the break, of being involved in those type of character building things in your community. The people that will end up you meeting, being around, will prepare you for later in the future. Like, it's all very, very impactful. And you started to talk about some of the things that you were involved in. So with you working with the Ministry of Grand Bahama and working there as legal counsel, what are some of the things that you see happening or you can predict happening, especially as it relates to young people and opportunities they will probably have in the near future here in Grand Bahama?
Yeah, so when it comes to this particular portfolio that I now have, I want to say first and foremost, I'm so proud of working in the ministry for Grand Bahama, working with this particular minister for Grand Bahama, because what I see, if anyone has met the Honorable Ginger Moxie and see how a brain works up close, you can. I mean, it kind of amazes you, really.
Right.
Because she comes from a, non-traditional field, a marketing field, promotions, projects. So really the Ministry for Grand Bahama is multifaceted in that way. It was once just pure administration. So you just, checks and balances, you pay bills here and there. But it really has become a ministry for people.
Okay.
Right? So one of the there are a lot of projects that are in the pipeline, but a few of them that have happened are happening now for the last 2-3 years now. I think it's year 3 now. So you have Collab.
Yes.
You've heard about Collab, Partnerships for Developments. That is the minister's baby. That is one of the pilot projects under the Collab project and Collab unit is the transition homes, right? So you have persons who you see in the community, maybe down and out. They would not have a place to stay. And once, based on their application, they are given a 6-month residency, say, in one of the transition homes in the Trip Circle area. So that has been going on for, I believe, 2 years now. So you see where persons say, oh, there's nothing happening for homelessness and no one is checking for them and no one is bringing relief to that area, right, of what's going on in our society. But I do believe that is one of the key points, the transition homes under the Collab unit that are assisting people, on a daily basis.
Definitely.
And shout out to the corporate sponsors who are also collaborating, because that's the main gist of Collab. You're collaborating, who are collaborating with the Ministry for Grand Bahama and the minister to ensure that those homes are up and running in the Trip Circle, Backatown area. You also have beautiful Grand Bahama. where persons for the last 2 years have been given employment. Persons who, some of them, who otherwise would not have received a job, a normal pay, because of, their past records, and, they're considered persons who should not be given a second chance.
Right.
But under the beautiful Grand Bahama, they're given a second chance, and we are beautifying the community. We are impacting the community, and you can see it all around Grand Bahama. It's like it's a different energy.
Yeah.
We're being
it's almost
uplifted.
like you could feel something coming. Like yeah.
We're being uplifted. I mean, even down to cultural sites and festival sites, they're being either built or restored under the beautiful Grand Bahama program. So I really enjoy, again, what I do and how I see the minister working there. And then also it was recently announced, and I think that's where I last saw you.
Right.
The Afro-Caribbean Marketplace.
Yes.
And it's because of that project that the Afri-XM Bank actually came to Nassau.
Correct.
And it was some 7,000 delegates there.
Yes, that was a huge event, and that was an amazing announcement, especially a proud thing to see as a Grand Bahamian there.
And I mean, if you think about it again, and I just shout out to being a Grand Bahamian. I love to be a Grand Bahamian. So with us being the most northern island in the Bahamas, really in the Caribbean, not geographically but historically, we are the most northern in the Caribbean. We are considered the gateway of the Caribbean.
Yes,
that's what we are. So imagine being the gateway of our homeland. So that's almost the marriage of the two, the Afro-Caribbean Marketplace.
Yes.
So I believe it was most recently announced that it would be where the former International Bazaar is.
Right.
So you're talking about actually getting rid of, or more so answering, those legacy questions and
about
alleviating those legacy issues. And I mean, the International Bazaar had its time.
Yes.
I believe, especially me, for someone who was able to experience it.
It was a beautiful experience.
It was beautiful, but I based on what I see and where I see the minister going as far as the Afro-Caribbean Marketplace, it's taking it to a whole nother level.
I love it.
It's and it's more authentically us. Being
than what the bazaar used to be.
Yeah, what the bazaar used to be. So it's more authentically Afro, it's more authentically Caribbean. You're talking about the 50 odd countries in Africa. You're talking about the 16 other nations in the Caribbean, and you're talking about all of the islands of the Bahamas being represented in this one space.
Love it.
That's a beautiful thing. So I can't wait to see that come to fruition.
I love it. So with you working there, do you still do anything legal wise? Do you still give advice or anything on the side, private practice,
To the minister.
I know that's right. I love it.
But I also, because earlier when I joined I almost said the firm. When I joined the ministry, one of the mandates, right after the Evidence Act was amended, was to deal with coroner matters, coroner's matters. So I had the privilege of kind of going back to court there and going in front of a coroner and a panel, and so basically to declare persons dead who would have otherwise been considered missing in Hurricane Dorian.
Right. So the time is now passed.
Right. So it was shortened from 7 to 2 in the case of natural disasters or natural circumstances like that of Dorian. So again, that's another proud moment that I had. It's sad.
Yes.
But it brings closure.
Yes.
To persons, to families. So that's another thing that I'm also proud of, and that the ministry was able to do for persons. Yes.
Right. That's wonderful, wonderful. But thank you so much, Tamar, for coming and having this amazing conversation.
Anytime.
We got into so much, and it flowed so well.
So well.
Talked about family law, talked about the bail system. Now I think I feel like I know what about a bail application a little bit, you know? Know what I mean? But I love coming in and love having you talk. It's always good energy with you, and you've always been an advocate for youth and young people, and I feel even more comfortable about the Ministry of Grand Bahama, knowing that my good soul sister, Tamar Moss-Ferguson, is now working in that office. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who has been watching this episode. If you enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe below. Hit the notification button so you can know more about these episodes. If you're just joining and didn't catch the whole thing, you can watch the entire episode on Islandish Podcast right here on YouTube. Thank you so much for coming.
And thank you.
So you guys, see you later.
See ya. Bye.